Hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I am your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Evan TeBrake. Evan's the owner of Truck Transport Incorporated. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, John.
Would you like to just kick us off with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and then the business that you're in?
Yeah, certainly. So, like you said, my name's Evan TeBrake. I'm a third generation owner of a family-owned trucking company in Wilmer, Minnesota, Truck Transport. My grandfather, Grandpa John, started this business back in 1987. Um, so we're slowly, or I guess maybe quickly, pushing up on the 40-year mark here. Yeah, we transport overdimensional ag construction and industrial equipment around the lower 48 states and Canada. So we get to work with a lot of different people um, every single day. We got a great team, and yeah, it's just a fun environment to be in. I personally rejoined the company in 2019, and then was provided the opportunity to step into ownership in January of 2021. So it's been 4 years since I've been in partnership with my dad, and just really enjoy the trucking industry. It's been a part of our family story for many years. My grandfather, even prior to starting truck transport, was an over-the-road driver. He drove for a couple different companies and did some driving just independently as well for a number of years. Yeah, it's just a neat industry to be a part of. And we're happy to be continuing on here into 2025. So.
So, Evan, you mentioned that you rejoined the company in 2019. Did you go away, do something else for a period of time? And maybe what was it that brought you back?
Yeah, so I worked for the company kind of growing up through, probably late elementary into my high school years, and just different odd jobs, kind of like a lot of family business stories go. Did lawn mowing around the shop, and um, did a lot of truck washing in that wet, hot, humid environment in the middle of winter. You go from sweating to shivering up here in Minnesota very quickly. Yeah, I kind of grew up around it and I got to know a lot about it. And then had an opportunity. I went worked for a nonprofit organization called Children of the Promise in high school, even. I had gone there on a mission trip with my parents back in 2011, and ended up being a pretty life-changing experience. And then I had the opportunity to work in an internship with Children of the Promise, and went to college. Didn't graduate from college because I took another job opportunity, but basically ended up working for Children of the Promise for 3 years full time then after I was in school. And just got to learn a lot from a different perspective from a nonprofit world. Got to interact with business owners from a different perspective, and really shaped a lot about how I approach business now today. So.
What are some of the things that you learned with your experience with the nonprofit that you brought back with you, essentially?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's really interesting is the relational aspect of business is always one of those kind of hot button topics. There's lots of different approaches to how people go about it. Some have a lot more of a ironclad, like fire and brimstone. This is the expectation. We're gonna roll this out, and real high expectations that way. And sometimes the relational aspect can be missing from it. And then other times you might have a more soft or gentle approach, and maybe there's a lack of accountability and direction. And I've found that sometimes it's challenging to find that middle ground. And so what I would say Growing up in the family that I did and the industry that I did, you have a lot of blue collar, real hardworking people, and you just kind of nose to the grindstone, right? And the expectation is there that, hey, we're going to work, we're just going after it. We might not necessarily talk about as many things. We're just going to let our actions speak for what's going on here, which there's a lot of value in. But when I stepped into the nonprofit world, I had the opportunity to learn a lot more about the relational aspect of an organization because that world looks a lot different. Everybody better be rowing the boat the same direction because you got a pretty clear mission and purpose as a nonprofit. Otherwise, you're probably not a real reputable nonprofit. And so I was able to see through that lens a little bit of what it looks like to really have a mission and a purpose and to steward money well because you're stewarding money that is coming in from many donors that are entrusting it to you. So I just really kind of formed this different view of what a business could maybe look like by taking some pieces of what I learned in the nonprofit sector and applying it to some of the ways that I approached business with our company as well.
You mentioned earlier you're in a partnership with your father in this business.
Mhm.
Talk to us a little bit about what's that separation of duties look like between the two of you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel really fortunate. Both my dad and I are pretty strong believers in Jesus Christ, and so that has really helped shape a lot of the groundwork for how we go about things. And um, grace is a big part of it with each other. But what's really neat is we each have different strengths, and I've watched my dad. He's a very humble man, loves to teach what he knows. And so I've been very fortunate to grow up in that environment. And so now for me, having that extension into the business has been really neat to see. Um, I have a lot more gifting in administrative type roles. I'm a visionary, so I kind of fill that seat in our company. I'm always looking big picture. Um, and my dad is a lot more operationally minded. He loves being right in the trenches, either in the seat of a truck anytime he can, which isn't super often right now, which I love too, because there's something about that you just can't replace in any other role. But my dad just absolutely loves that. He loves spending time in quoting and dispatch and helping to shape those things too. So he's a lot more operationally driven and really feeds a lot into and breathes a lot of life into our people in those seats. And so it's been really neat to see my dad continue to share his knowledge with me. And as I've kind of worked my way through the organization, I started in dispatch and then ended up kind of managing the office, particularly the dispatch team, and then stepped into just more administration of the whole team altogether. And now I've had the opportunity here this past year to step into the role of president. And my dad kind of stepped down into more of an operations role and has really just breathed life into me and empowered me to step in and continue to lead the charge forward. So I've learned a lot about sacrifice and humility from my dad, and I'm real grateful for that.
That's really good. So, sounds like you guys make a really good, solid combination between the two of you.
Yeah, certainly.
Good. I'm going to change the subject a little bit. Talk to us about your industry and what are some of the strategies you guys are using to remain innovative in this space? Because you occupy a unique niche, but
Mhm.
what about innovation in this space? What are some of the things you're doing there?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a big question in our industry because over the last 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of innovation happening with trucks themselves. Emissions is a big topic. The ELDs, the electronic logging devices, is a big topic. And We have a lot of conversation about that because it felt like in a lot of ways the design of the motors and the trucks themselves had really reached a pinnacle in the late 90s and early 2000s. You had just the right amount of tech incorporated with some good, more mechanical componentry that they had really honed in. So you're starting to see some good fuel economy, a little bit cleaner burning engines and things like that. Real good power, longevity. You're seeing a lot more million-mile motors and things like that. And then as the EPA steps in and starts bringing some more regulations, now these manufacturers like Cummins have to start thinking a lot harder about their design. And so um, you get diesel particulate filters and DEF and things like that incorporated. And now 2027 has been another benchmark as far as that goes. So that's a big part of it. Another thing that's interesting is with the ELDs back in 2017, that was mandated that electronic logging devices for post 1999 motors was put into place. And so that changed things because you had a lot of people in our industry kind of flying under the radar, kind of fudging logbooks and things like that. And so it becomes harder, obviously, when you have electronic logging devices. And so that is something that we always tried to operate ethically even prior to them. Um, but I would say your flexibility in terms of being able to get into a place when there's a lack of parking, we've seen that real exacerbated. That need for parking has become a real issue over the last 10 years because people can't quite get where they used to, or you can't make it that extra 10, 20 miles because you got a big red flag on your ELD, things of that nature. So with all of that, what we've tried to do in terms of innovation is continue to come back to our purpose and kind of let that lead us. Um, our purpose as a company is to positively impact communities through service. And again, I would reference our faith there too, is really kind of bred into how we try to live out our purpose. We're wanting to leave an impact with all of our customers and the people that we're dealing with, whether that's a pilot car service or somebody at a truck stop or whatever the case might be, that when they think truck transport, they're thinking about, wow, that was a different experience than what we're used to from a trucking company. So even through the lens of innovation, I would say we've continued to just try to step with all of the regulations, with all of the um, new challenges that have come with the industry, and just let our purpose lead us into those things. And just continue to navigate them through that lens because it can be overwhelming. Trucking is the most regulated industry in America. And so it's overwhelming sometimes when there's continuous change. So for us, um, we're spending a lot of time just leaning into that. Tech changes things too, even through our marketing. We're spending more time focused on what that looks like, sharing our story, and sharing how our purpose drives us. And one interesting thing is that the more that technology continues to push us forward, we've leaned farther into almost some of the more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Uh, I wouldn't say ancient, but things that existed prior to technology. We've started to look back at those to try to be innovative in a way that familiarizes people again with some of the things that they used to really love. So, trying to be intentional with our relationships, trying to make sure that we're making phone calls that we might not even have to, trying to make sure we take any opportunity to be face to face with people. Because we really find that not only in our industry, um, but especially in our industry, it can get really lost when you start incorporating technology so much. Because you don't have to make that phone call. I know where the driver is, or different things like that, where you can really take the people component out of the equation. And so we've really tried to hone in on how we continue to reintroduce that as technology, among other things, continues to push time forward. So.
Do you foresee electric vehicles being part of your fleets at some point in time?
Oh, yes, the question of the day. Um, you know, I would hate to say no, but I also have a hard time saying yes. So, for what we do specifically right now, I think it would be a long ways off because we put in a lot of miles in a day. And we battle a lot of different climates. So you're coming out of Minnesota in the wintertime and you're making a delivery down in Georgia. Well, man, you might see a 100-degree temperature swing in 2 days there. So thinking about where we're at with the technology on electric, they still see reduced drive times from colder temperatures, and we already see an issue with truck parking. So how are we going to find that sustainable to make sure that we're finding spots to charge all the time? So I think there's a lot of question marks that still exist there. But if you would have asked my grandfather 20, 30 years ago about deaf, he would probably look at you funny too. So, um, we're not ignorant to the fact that as technology continues to improve, it may be a possibility, but I don't see it anywhere in the near term for us.
Good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to answer that because, what I hear you saying is you're not going to rule it out, but right now it's the technology is just not there to be able to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Good. Good. So, knowing that this show is going to be targeted towards people who are going to be in their first few years of business, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, one of the things that I think I've learned the most is people matter. Um, from the hiring process through the training into the day to day, the amount of time that you spend preparing for an individual to join your team, um, doing the due diligence to really vet that person, whether it's an employee or a customer, because not all customers are the right fit for your company either. You can spend a lot of time chasing fires, trying to put out fires for a customer that at the end of the day, if you could put that to bed or realize that it's not the right fit, it could really change your approach to business. And, maybe it allows you the time to go maximize your potential elsewhere. So, from that perspective, from both an employee and a customer lens, I think that's just really a huge point that I've learned. And I'll tell you, naturally, I'm a visionary, like I stated before, and I got a lot of plans, a lot of dreams, and so I like to keep pushing them forward. Um, I have a brother who has joined the business as well, and he offsets my personality because he really likes Excel spreadsheets. He really likes having everything in order. And so he acts a lot more like an integrator in our business. So he takes a lot of my thoughts and ideas and brings them down to tangible implementation practices. Um, and so it's important too to have those type of people on your team who are going to keep you grounded if you're somebody like me. And on the flip side, if you're somebody like my brother Austin, it's important to have somebody who's more of a visionary to help continue dreaming big, thinking differently about things as well. So having the balance of those two things is really crucially important in the equation as well. Um, and with all of that, I've learned a lot of patience because I'm not naturally patient either. And I think a lot of visionaries probably could relate because you spend a lot of time thinking about these dreams that you have and envisioning what they look like. And now you got to figure out how do I back myself down here to help people who don't think this way understand how we might be able to start working through. Maybe it's as small of a problem as a day-to-day task, or it could be as big of a opportunity as a new business venture. Um, so all of that kind of wraps into probably some tones that you're hearing from this answer of being self-aware and others aware. Because if you understand yourself really well, and offer a lot of grace to those around you, it's really going to take you a long ways. And kind of a cliche saying, but you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Doing a lot of listening and a lot less talking, and so that's something that I've really grown in. Because anybody who knows me knows that I like to talk too. So, having a lot of patience, a lot of grace, being self-aware and others aware, and just slowing down, taking time to really understand what your purpose is and letting that drive your decisions every day.
That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Evan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great meeting you, learning more about your journey and your family's journey. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.